to the Prophecy Club. Have you ever heard the term progressive evil? You may not have, but you'll understand it when I explain it. You see, here's the way the devil works. He understands, for example, that someone is not going to start mainlining heroin. In other words, they have to take it in small jumps. So, first of all, go ahead, try the cigarette. It doesn't hurt. It actually tastes good. I mean, your parents smoke. Everybody around you smoke. Here, try it. Just take a puff. And then before long, hey, will you smoke cigarettes? It's kind of like a cigarette, except for it makes you feel wonderful. Here, puff this. Then before long, hey, try this. It's kind of like marijuana, except for it's just in a pill, and it makes you feel wonderful. I mean, you'll fly. And then before long, it's, okay, well, it's kind of like taking a pill, except for it's in a syringe. But you'll see God, man. Go ahead, shoot up. You see, we didn't start out to be a mainline heroin addict. We started out by simply taking a small puff on one simple little, quote, innocent cigarette. But America, unfortunately, is mainlining evil now. So it's very important that the things we talk about here on the Prophecy Club be listened to, adhered to, and that you pray and work and do what you can to stop it. Because if we don't stop the cigarette puff, then before long we'll be mainlining heroin. Take, for example, Halloween. It's just around the corner. Yet we still continue to celebrate Halloween, and every year I get on the radio and I expose just how bad it is. And yet it's still going on. You see, America has continued to accept the evil. So consequently, when we accept the small evil, the devil is always coming in, kind of like the camel that gets his nose in the tent, the rest of the body follows. Now, for example, since we're talking about Halloween today, we're going to be offering 3 awesome DVDs and a book. And it's exposing some what compared to, for example, having Islam and having mosques and having Christians with Bibles and Qurans together in the same pew, worshiping under the same roof, compared to that abomination, this is something simple. Nevertheless, it starts here. And if your children are celebrating Halloween, if they are reading Harry Potter books, if they're watching some of the satanic things on TV, then brothers and sisters, you have to know about it. You have to do something about informing them and stopping them. Now, what am I talking about? The 3 DVDs and the book we're about to offer are What's Wrong with Halloween? America's Occult Holidays. Now, this one talks not just about Halloween, but also Christmas, Easter, and a whole lot of things having to do with Halloween. And then Occult Holidays Revealed, and this is talking about how Christmas is not just the birthday of Jesus, but it's actually the sun god Mithra, that Easter is actually celebrating the birth of Ishtar. Halloween is a celebration of Samhain, the Celtic lord of the dead. And then finally, the book, Under the Spell of Harry Potter. Now, in case you're thinking, oh, well, the old Harry Potter stuff, that's all. Well, let me just tell you, my nephew brought over Harry Potter, a book of Harry Potter, into my house just last week. I was shocked. Guys, this stuff has not gone away. You have to be educated in it. Well, do you know how to tell someone what's wrong with Harry Potter? Do you know how to tell someone what's wrong with Halloween? What's wrong with Christmas? What's wrong with Easter? Then you better be listening up. Now we're about to listen to the audio of a DVD called What's Wrong with Halloween. And again, we're going to be offering 3 DVDs and a book, $100 value, all for gifters just $30. And if you order it by October 24th, you'll have it in your hands before Halloween. prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Jack Cluney is a ranking authority on Satanism, witchcraft, white supremacy, and other forms of occult and occult activity. He's assisted the FBI, CIA, OSI, Border Patrol, police, and sheriff in occult-related crimes. He's an ordained Baptist minister, an expert witness in court proceedings, and you're about to learn street-level spiritual warfare from a man that has walked it. What's wrong with Halloween?
There are more drugs that come into Houston than any other harbor in the United States. There's some debate that Miami is the first, but I believe from what I've seen that Houston is the busiest in the United States, busiest harbor, but with drugs and other things coming into the United States. I left town. A lot of things happened. We'll get through that during this talk. But I left town, got back. A Harris County Sheriff's detective called me, and he said, Jack, guess what just showed up? He said, within 5 miles of where you spoke, there were 6, minus the head and minus the entrails, found within 5 miles from where you were. And I said, let me guess. If you drew lines between the goats, you found a pentagram. I said, let me guess. I said, no, I want you to tell me. That how are they reasoning that these goats were there? And you will laugh when I tell you the answer. Audience, today, whether you're listening to this tape at home, you will know and you will know the answer, even if you believe nothing of what I say. 6 goats, no entrails. And the official party line for the Harris County Sheriff's Department, Houston PD, was bad barbecue. Absolutely serious. The stupidity of some police departments because they don't want to face the facts. I called this investigator by name, and I said, now, I'll tell you, my friend, this is not the whole story. Beware and watch during the next 7 days for something more gruesome than 6 no entrails and no hooves. 6 days later, I got a telephone call. Same cop. I said, I don't even want you to tell me. Let me tell you what you found. You found a female body, 20 to 25, maybe 30 years old, no heads, no arms, no legs. I said, because Texas is no different than the rest of the country. I tell you what I've found in the last 2 months since this holiday began. Halloween actually begins the first part of September, right around September 11th. Actually, September 7th, but in certain years, not to mention any, 7/11 fell on a day that was critical to the Satanic calendar. I said, I have found no less headless, armless, legless torsos throughout the United States, San Francisco area, other areas. All this means I found 4 in the state of Illinois where I live, all down one highway. 4 from Chicago to the bottom of the state. Illinois is a long state with one highway going all the way down. 4 headless, armless, legless bodies on a major highway. They're still unsolved. And what they tend to do is they tend to push these cases to the side because they really don't want to know. Other things going on. You'll find signs like this all over the United States. Signs like this. Now this, very frankly, is a gang sign. This has really nothing to do, question mark, tongue-in-cheek, with Satanism. Question mark, tongue-in-cheek, so it says, maybe it does. Other markers. What these do, they tell people where to go. There was a young man found, arrested in mid-state Illinois. A young man who didn't much care what his parents thought. His mother went to a local county detective in charge of juveniles, begged this detective for help in raising her child. Now, that makes me laugh. Our families are so messed up because of a lot of reasons that we have to go to a police department to raise our children. So all of a sudden, we find out that this child is 17 years old. He's in trouble at school all the time. Does that mean he's a Satanist? No. We all grew up, didn't we? In this audience and listening, who cannot find a time in his or her life that they might have done something that they look upon now as stupid, is lying to me. But this child was a problem case. So the detective looked at her and he said, well, what does his room look like? And she looked at him and she said, I don't know. I haven't seen the inside of his room in 2 years. So the detective went over to the house and it was padlocked. And out of his briefcase, he reaches in, and not his briefcase, but his wallet, he reaches in, pulls out a form and said, would you sign this? Went out to the trunk of his car, popped the locks on the house, on the room, and you'll see what they found. But this is one of the things when this kid was picked up, because they found a tie to some little misdemeanor behavior. But this is one pendant that they found in his belongings, actually on an altar in his room. This is a Baphomet, Satan incarnate. These were some other crystals worn by followers of Wicca and sometimes even Satanists. This was an altar found in his room. There were two distinct altars. No, you're not, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. The upside-down cross. Notice the pentagram. And you can't see some of the other things. There's an urn down here. You see it there? Inside of this urn, there's a little process that law enforcement people do, a little chemical in a swab. You've all seen it on TV. Or they subject it to a light. And there was remnants of blood in this black robe. This happened to be a judo robe. This was on top of his TV. Just Halloween. Many cases we find symbols that border between Satanism and Islam. There's a lot. Well, it's going to get me in trouble. But there's a lot of lies going on about Islam. One pastor of a major denomination, actually he was a mental health counselor, right after 9/11 looked at me and said, well, brother, we're all from the same seed. And I said, you know what? I wish you wouldn't have said that. I said, we've got to look at things theologically here. And I'm not here to talk to you about Islam. There's others that are much better at that than I. But please understand that followers of Ishmael and Abraham, the only connection is Abraham. I made a mistake there. Ishmael and Isaac. The only connection there was Abraham. But there's lots of connection with Islamic type of stuff. Peace signs. Now, that's one of my favorite. I'm a short-haired hippie. Anybody relate to that? All right? I'm 56 years old, and I was a short-haired hippie, which means that I like to eat. Therefore, I kept my hair short so I could keep a job. But everything else about me was hippie was all about, particularly war and protesting and all that other stuff. Now, I woke up and got saved along the way, and my life changed, but that's another story. But peace signs. Now, how innocent is this peace sign? And then about 15 years ago, I run across a German historian who told me the origin. I was a young Bible student about that particular time. I didn't know. Told me it was the cross of Nero. When Nero stood on the porch of his palace and broke the arms to the cross and said, we're going to defeat Christianity. I said, oh, that it surfaced in the Third Reich as a sign of the certain women's auxiliary unit of the Third Reich. Now, I drive a Mercedes-Benz SUV, consecrated to Jesus, by the way. And what's on the front of a Mercedes-Benz? Okay? Sell all your Mercedes. I know of some good ministries. If you want to do that, just sign the title over and well, you get the idea. I find people with onks. There may be people in this sanctuary today or listening to this tape today that wear an onk as an alternative cross. It is an Egyptian sign for reincarnation and some other things. This was also found in this kid's room. Satanic pendants, sometimes representing times of ritual. This is a calendar. One of my favorite. This is a pendant worn by a first degree in the temple. Church of Satan, founded by Anton LaVey in San Francisco. City of other strange things also, but we're not talking about those today. This kid had done his homework. In order to get this pendant, you can't buy it. You have to, other symbols, crystals, mystic symbols like unicorns. No unicorns in the Bible, by the way. There was another piece of jewelry. You're not going to believe this. In fact, let me be honest to you, that if I didn't see it, that's why I photographed it. In fact, it is still in my possession today. This is the pendant, handmade, and something on the other end. Now, as naive as even I've been around this business for a long time. I am the longest surviving investigator, private sector investigator in this particular area. I was even naive, and I didn't pay much attention. This is mummified human flesh. And when the law enforcement agency in that particular area was notified of this, I got, Barbie had a bad day. Ken was arrested, but stayed in jail 45 minutes. I can tell you stories. Now, this came from a church field outside a church in Apache Junction, Arizona. And walking around this church to see if there was any satanic activity happening directed at the church, we find this little plateau up on some rocks, and we found a bunch of things, but this one, if you look right here, it looks like a shadow, but it's actually burnt. So there was a fire involved here, and this was used, and I wish I could tell you that this is an isolated incident, but it absolutely is not. We find things like this all over the country. In central Illinois, grave marker. I got a call from the local sheriff's department one morning in my office. It was from my friend the detective, and he said, Jack, I'm on the way. Be ready. Have your camera ready. I'm coming to get you. I said, what's going on? And he said, I don't have time. About 5 minutes later, lights and siren came into my driveway. Now, I was a pastor at the time. Imagine what happens when a county sheriff's detective's car pulls into the parsonage driveway, lights and siren, and I enter the back seat. Imagine the rumors. He speeds me out into the country, an old abandoned cemetery. Some people thought it was abandoned. This gravestone was between the gate, an open gate. The reason you don't see the gate, you can see a little post on the side here. The reason that doesn't show, because I needed to show the detail in this, this is an upside-down cross and an open grave. The open grave was about 120 years old. It was a child's grave. And a ritual called for at that particular time of year, called for the remains of one grave mixed with the remains of a new sacrifice and reburied. Now, we didn't want the news involved in this, but they were listening to the police radio. And prisoner in Texas. Why do I get so much out of Texas? Because cops in Texas are so fed up. I mean, they send me film. We process our own film. We don't trust the local labs. We process our own film. They send me rolls of film. They know their bosses aren't going to do anything with it, so they just send it to me. We process it, and we take anything out and then let them know if there was anything that they should be looking for. In this picture, let me see if I can show you here. Well, in this picture, you'll see lines coming down the chest. Okay, this man was involved in a form of witchcraft called Santeria, or Santa Maria. It's called Santeria, actually. It is a Latin form of witchcraft in which they cut themselves and bleed and mix all of their blood into one cup and drink it as a form of communion. There are other markings on his body, pentagram on his foot. Well, Brother Jack, that's just a star. No, it isn't. If you look at it from opposite, not the way he's looking at it, but the way somebody else is looking at it, it's a pentagram or it's an upside-down star. Grave markers. I want to, if I were to visit 3 graveyards in this community or any community throughout the United States, I would be able to find satanic or witchcraft activity, guaranteed. You might not see it, but I will. This is somewhat obvious. This was the same graveyard as the open grave, shot about 2 weeks before. I knew something was going to happen. Headstone. This is the headstone for this gravestone. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole story here, but I was with a lieutenant this day from the local sheriff's department. My friend was with me also. But his boss was there because he wanted to put an end to this garbage that we were doing. And we walk up to this. He said, how do you know that this is organized? This whole graveyard is desecrated. It is vandalism. Therefore, that's what the report's going to say. And I said, come here, let me look at this. I said, here is a grave marker, is a capstone. Please notice that if it was vandalism, that the head of the would have been marked, chipped, and there would have been a dent in the ground because this thing weighs about 3,000 pounds. I said, please notice that it's 9 feet away. 9 feet, not 6, not 10, 9 feet away. It's laying directly plumb, directly level to this one here, and there's no indentation. How did it get from here? If it was merely vandalism, it would have ended up right here on the gravestone. These are bones found about a half a mile upriver from where a little girl disappeared. Little girl who later was found mutilated, sexually assaulted, and obviously dead. German Shepherd dog, around a certain holiday that white supremacists like to celebrate, also tied into the calendar, also related to Halloween, but not on Halloween. Dog's throat slit, another animal. This was a pig. That's kind of obvious, I think. But what happens here? What happens here happens in every community in the United States about a series of stories that I hope you will listen to, because they're absolutely, because I was there in all of them. I'm not telling you something about something that I heard about. I was there on every single story that I'm going to tell you about today. Every one of them. Every one of them is factual. Every one of them can be documented in any community here in the United States. But before I do that, I want to draw your attention to the fact that Halloween is one festival in between a series of holidays, starting around the 7th to the 11th of September and ending December 24th. Lacey Peterson disappeared right prior to Christmas. She was pregnant. You know what the sacrifice called for at that time is? It's a way to disgrace the virgin birth. It requires a young female. Was Lacey Peterson killed by Satanists? I don't know. But the coincidences are rather obvious. So what I want you to do is I want you to listen as we go through this, because unless I tell you differently, I was there and I witnessed all of these cases. And they're factual, and they really happen, and they really represent real people. And it would be a sin for us, because these people have been damaged, they've been hurt, and sometimes killed. Let's listen and understand that these are real people. 3. All right, you ready? Married late in life. Many of us thought that Jim was an individual that would stay single forever. That wasn't the case. He met a woman who was involved in some, strange forms of religious practice. But, everybody has a little different. Married this woman, and all of a sudden, things started to progress. Come to find out that she was a witch. Gradually, Jim came from being comfortable with his wife's religion. Jim's wife contracted cancer suddenly, died almost as suddenly, in the middle of October. Jim apparently attempted suicide. Now, we were involved at that time. I got the call. I took an elder in our church of mine and met a pastor friend of mine in Tucson, and we went and prayed over Jim, and we bound the forces of evil, and he did not die. Came and lived with us for a while. And that's the last time I saw Jim. That's the last time I saw him. When we understood what was going on, we got mad. And many pastors at the time says, brother, being mad about it is not spiritual. But they didn't understand what I understand today. The rest of the story, and here it is. Jim was killed by a method they call cueing. And what would happen over time is they would teach him certain things, and he would forget when he did certain things. So here's the story. His wife died, be around the house, and they would have compassionate phone calls. And the woman, say I was a woman, answered, on the phone. Jim answered the phone, and Jim said, hello, and this woman would say, hey, brother, how are you? How are you doing? And Jim would say, well, if it wasn't for this headache, I'd be okay. Migraine headaches almost all his life. She said, well, we'll be praying for you. Another call, Jim, how are you? Well, if it wasn't for this headache, I'd be okay. Jim, how are you? This might happen over a period of hours, maybe even days. Jim, how are you? If it wasn't for this headache, I'd be great. Now, there was a doctor in this spiritualist church. There was a medical doctor. And the medical doctor would eventually call, because we knew this was going on. The medical doctor would call and said, Jim, how you doing? And he would say, if it wasn't for this headache, I'd be okay. The doctor would say, well, do you have any of your wife's medicine around? And he said, yeah, matter of fact, I do. And the doctor said, well, why don't you take this and go to bed and let me know if you don't feel better. Jim would say, great, thanks, Doc, I really needed that. Jim would go and take the medicine. So he would go to bed, get another telephone call. Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm going to interrupt the broadcast right there, but I do encourage you to get the Halloween gift offer, and I'll tell you how in just a moment. Thank you for listening, thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. Prophet Leslie will be speaking each Sunday morning through the end of December, making a 10-DVD set called Error in the Church. This will help you to recognize a biblically based church and avoid those with errors in doctrine, committing abomination, heresy, apostasy, and blasphemy. Many churches are like a poison M&M. They look good, taste good, but they'll kill you spiritually. Like Chronicles 20:20 says, believe in the Lord your God, so shall you be established. Believe his prophets, and so shall you prosper. And the topics are Mysticism, New Age of the Christian Church, the Kundalini Spirit Warning by Andrew Strom of Australia, New Reformation Church or Kingdom Now Theology Church, Chrislam, Seeker-Friendly, Seeker-Sensitive Church, the Emergent Church, Postmodernism, the G12 Vision Church, Tazi Worship Church, Tangible Kingdom Movement Church, Viserian Siberian Jesus Church, Hyper Grace Movement, Yoga in the Church, 12 topics, 10 DVDs valued at $300, and you can place your order for them now for just a gift of $180. She'll be speaking 9:30 to 10:30 each Sunday through the end of December at the Spirit of Prophecy Church, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. That's on the corner of Park and K in Plano. No charge, of course. See you there. If your son or daughter were to bring home a book about Harry Potter, would you be able to talk to them and explain what is wrong with it? How about if they said, well, what's wrong with Halloween? Or what's wrong with Christmas? Or what's wrong with Easter? Can you explain just off the top of your head what's wrong with it? Or would you find yourself simply out of words? Well, this DVD set is going to give you the answers to those questions. It's 3 DVDs and a book. The first one is What's Wrong with Halloween? Now, Dr. Jack Cluney is a ranking authority on Satanism and witchcraft, and he's an ordained minister, an expert witness in court proceedings, and he talks to you about street-level spiritual warfare from someone that really knows it. Then America's Occult Holidays. Dr. Marquis was raised in an occultic Illuminati family. He attained the rank of third-degree Master Witch. His family was in the Illuminati for 7 generations, 189 years. He says Christmas is an ancient occultic ceremony dedicated to the birthday of Tammuz. Easter's shifting date is determined by astrology. Halloween is the deadliest holiday in human history. You'll learn the truth about practices like bobbing for apples, trick-or-treat, jack-o'-lantern, May Day, and a lot more. Then, in Occult Holidays Revealed, Stephen Dollins is an ex-Satanist high priest of the Church of Satan, and he reveals the origins behind Christmas, Easter, Halloween. Did you know, for example, that Christmas is not the birthday of Jesus, but rather the sun god Mithra? Easter is actually celebrating the birth of Ishtar. Halloween is a celebration of Samhain, the Celtic lord of the dead. Finally, under the spell of Harry Potter book, Stephen Dollins explains how the Satanists use Harry Potter as a recruiting tool. It teaches children spell casting, potions, cures, and that there is no difference between good or evil. It indirectly prepares children to receive the mark of the beast and makes Christianity appear to be weak and without power. 3 DVDs and a book valued at $100, all for a gift today of just $30, and order it by October 24th. You'll get it before Halloween. It's the Halloween gift offer at prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. The Halloween gift offer, order by October 24th. Get it before Halloween at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112.